Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's virtual meetup. We're excited to welcome Robert Mastrovito from ShorePoint. He's going to be walking us through ShorePoint's journey with Elastic and some best practices that their professional services team has learned along the way. So without further ado, I will hand things over to you, Robert.
Thank you so much, Faith. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the ShorePoint Elastic Meetup. My name is Robert Mastrovito. I am an executive director and solutions architect here at ShorePoint. I'm here to introduce you to ShorePoint and take you on our journey with using and integrating Elastic technology across the government and how we became an Elastic professional services consulting arm for Elastic directly. We'll start with ShorePoint services overview and highlight where our Elastic practice sits in. We'll jump to why we started working with Elastic in the first place and some of the challenges we faced, leveraging legacy technology like legacy SIM technology and such. We'll talk. Sorry about that. We'll talk through our past solution sets, integrating Elastic and how Elastic continuous feedback and improvement and collaboration helped in the features and the product roadmap changes. We will move to a snapshot of our current working and development roadmap based on customer requirements, where we will continually improve on and engage Elastic product support teams. Lastly, we will highlight our current professional services team and expand on ShorePoint's commitment to invest in our Elastic service practice and continually work with Elastic to pave the way to streamline our engagements. So here's a little bit about ShorePoint, who we are. So ShorePoint is a privately held cybersecurity services firm serving private and public sector customers. Our vision is to be the premier provider of cybersecurity and digital transformation services. Our business and technical leadership are redefining the approaches to providing impactful services by translating legacy and current government requirements and developing new and innovative mechanisms to deliver the best security models. That includes state-of-the-art processes, techniques, and technology. Here's a snapshot of our current customer base where we apply these innovative approaches through our service offerings. So let's talk a little bit about ShorePoint Cybersecurity Services holistically. We have advisory services, security and compliance services, security operations, security IT modernization, continuous diagnostics mitigation, and data analytics and digital transformation.
I guess we can chat, right? I'm curious about the data.
We can make it interactive.
Yeah, because obviously you're doing a lot of stuff on the security front, but the digital, just data analytics in general is a huge space. I mean, do you guys try to only do that in the context of security we can, or do you do more called mission stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as modernization, we're looking at other like a lot of the directives and memorandums and requirements. So not only just in the security space, but also we've also had experience using geospatial units and applications and observability, authentication mechanisms. I mean, that's more on the security side, but it's not just security, but that's our primary focus.
Okay, that makes sense.
So what's unique about this is we set up, so we set the stage for optimizing delivery because we pull in, it's like an adaptive and proactive approach by using the solution sets across all our services. So for example, where we have insight from our penetration or vulnerability assessment team, that they could go off and find something that's new and adaptive, right? Or a new, just say vulnerability or a new threat that's out there that could optimize a different component and say continuous diagnostics and mitigation, right?
Do you actually have a team that is doing proactive threat hunting on your own that you bring, or do you have like an office that's doing just that?
Yes. Yeah, we have a pretty large pen testing team.
Yeah.
And vulnerability assessment services.
I don't suppose you're writing any detection rules for Elastic as part of that, are you?
We could talk about that. I mean, I think there's a lot of overlap there, and some efforts and initiatives across the community that is using Elastic, and some of our methods of of discovery and our techniques. We could work together and create content or something like that. Yep. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. So one of the cool things that we like to introduce is an agile delivery method across a lot of our customer base. And this is to promote process acceleration, timeline to delivery acceleration, cybersecurity tool set and integration, but it also helps you if you ever have to make changes or corrections. It makes it flexible and adaptable, right? So this method, coupled with our business and security intelligence, deep expertise in tool and process automation, separates our teams from some kind of the other legacy ways and waterfall that we've seen in the government, right?
Do you see Agile as still new to the cyber world? I mean, it's obviously somewhat older on just pure software development, but in that world, do they not know what Agile means?
So a lot of times they do, and they know the fundamental over concept, right? Yeah. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to push old, waterfall and RFS or RFC type program management mechanisms into an agile-like framework. Yeah. So you're putting RMF framework, and it's not really truly digging in and using agile for what it's supposed to be used for. And so what we do is we like to kind of peel that onion back and say, hey, look, this is what it's supposed to be. Maybe you don't have to follow like a safe model where to the T, but how about a hybrid where we could still accelerate, but also comply with the requirements? So the data analytics and digital transformation services, this is where we define our Elastic technology footprint, uses in our offerings out of there. So ShorePoint currently today, we are a professional services delivery arm for Elastic across a lot of our government accounts. We're delivering across 10 plus customers concurrently I like to highlight this because it's 5 engagements delivering and integrating support to ECE, and 3 engagements delivering, integrating support to ECK. We found that a lot of people, there's been a shift in node-based to a lot of the Kubernetes deployments and operator, and also the ECE deployment. So,
what do you think that's from?
I think it's a little bit of both, of a lot of people embracing, containerization, Kubernetes deployments for their other services, and then realize that Elastic also has an operator to deploy their cloud, right? So how about we shift? Maybe they're already there and they want to transition into leveraging a Kubernetes environment, but they need that one step in expertise to work with them to get them up to speed.
Have you seen a particular uptake of a specific distribution of Kubernetes, one more than the other?
So we currently support right now, we have an OCP deployment, and we also, OCP. It's been interesting. Yeah. A lot of the cloud providers, EKS, Azure K8, right, and regular Kubernetes, but.
Okay. I only ask because we're trying to do more with Rancher.
Okay.
And
so we also have one we're using Podman too.
Yeah, which recently supported.
Yeah. Yep. That was a request. I mean, obviously Docker and a lot of the.
Yep.
So as far as the use cases, I mean, that's anything from the SIM security we highlighted. That's a lot of our primary focus, but we also do observability, the geospatial, as I mentioned before, application performance monitoring, and application search. I mean, to this day, Mike, you could contest how many nodes we've deployed over the years. 3,000 plus, I would say. I don't know. And then over 100 plus clusters, I would say. And I like to highlight too is that, we also have support and consultants and engineers that are supporting our ShorePoint direct vehicles. Our customer base, that is not a professional services support contract. It's our customers and where we're integrating the Elastic technology and or complementary services and solutions, right? The other good thing is too is, Elastic might say, hey, look, come in, help us work and install ECK, right? Where during the discovery phase, we might find out that they need a queuing mechanism, right? Something, maybe it's a tiered architecture or a high and low architecture. And so we have to implement Kafka, right? So we'll do that. We've done that in the past. We could do a lot of the automation, or if it's something that is specialized, we also have the application development side of it, like custom proxies for metadata catalog that we've had in the past. Yeah. So that's it. Okay, so excuse me, this is a little involved graphic, but I think it's the best way to kind of go through and explain why we started using Elastic. So starting at the top line, a lot of our customers, especially in the federal government and civilian side, they've had lots and lots of data, right? And it only expanded from there, and it's getting worse to this day. In the past, we found out, well, the only thing that was collecting data, whether it's cyber use case or even audit data for that matter, was the SIM technology. So it's like your legacy ARC sites, RSA security analytics, for example, you name it, McAfee Nitro, I don't know, there's the ones that I've used in the past, right, or supported in the past. And a lot of those technologies use relational databases, and as we put more and more data in, is slower and slower the retrieval and search that happen, right? And then with that, you would need more systems, and it would cost more money for licensing on your SIM, and it just wasn't feasible. We needed something fast, something search, something scalable. So that's where on the lower line on that top side, you'll see that leveraging the collection mechanism, Beats, Logstash, Elastic's does exactly that. It's a clustered distributed system. It's scalable, fault tolerant, and also with the data tiers mechanisms where you could define your hot, warm, and cold storage architectures. You don't necessarily have to use all the resources needed and required. That costs a lot of money, right? If you don't need to retrieve your data fast within like 30 days, you keep it in cold. It might cost you half the amount of money, right? Or not collect it at all. But the key there is that we were able to put in massive amounts of data at petabyte scales, and it was able to be searched across our data sets.
You're typically using some of the standard cloud offerings for that cold storage.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So for example, like EC, whatever the D2 2XLs, and then Glacier S2 for now that we have the capability for offline storage as well, searchable snapshots.
That's pretty much driven by your customer.
Correct. Yeah, we go into each engagement. We do a discovery and kickoff based on requirements. We say, what's your use case? How long do you need to retain the data? What types of data you need to retrieve fast and for how long? And then we calculate how much, what needs to be priced out on the resource side. And then obviously licensing and, but we always like to start with the use case, right? That always starts number one. And then the second thing is I like to call it the vendor lock-in, right? We had a hard time with proprietary data stores, right? So a lot of times we use like a Splunk or an ArcSight, your data is in their proprietary format, or that you are trapped in using their tool to access your data based on how they collect it, right? So if you're storing, terabytes and terabytes or petabytes of data, leveraging one of these tools, the only way to access it is through this SIM tool. You're stuck, right? And you're going to be paying that. You're going to be paying that bill for the rest. Yeah, the rest of forever.
Searches, right?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, depending on their model, right? Some are different based on consumption. Some are search, right? So where we're like, all right, well, Logstash, we could use any of the ETL tools or agents, and we could send it anywhere. We could send it. We don't even have to send it to Elastic. Obviously, we want to send it to Elastic for the capabilities, but the fact that we're able to go and just send it to Kafka if we wanted to, or send it directly to a file, right? Or send it raw and save it off. And then if we wanted a raw context of our original file, we had it, but we also had the ability to analyze it if we needed to.
For vendors sending data, was it easier to have the vendor change the format of their data or transform it once it got, either via Logstash or like an ETL more upstream?
So you're thinking like schema on read versus schema on write kind of concepts?
So my use case, so I'm actually a vendor. I'm going to know more about to integrate better with Elastic because we're seeing a lot of our customers either be interested in it or they're not happy with what they currently have. We want to have more ECS compliant data. We have a lot of different log data. Like some it's easy to change, some it's not so much.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out: do we just change the format of our logs, or do we propose, a transformation from the ETL somehow?
Right. Yeah. It all depends on the requirements. Like if you have to keep it stored for 5 years for auditing purposes, a lot of the times with those controls, we could save off the raw data set. So you could include in your raw message or have a separate pipeline and save that off, right? Changing the data set, you're always going to map it to some type of schema, right?
Okay.
They always say, chain of custody and all those models. It's always easier to conform to something like that so you can aggregate and associate all your data sets across.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So you can make sense of whether it's firewall logs or host-based security logs or cloud logs. You're looking at the same fields, but they're representing similar keys. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think we're the data generator.
Mm-hmm.
That's analyzing raw traffic. It sounds like we should change our format.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm thinking, and then
Can you tell us what vendor you're with? Or
Blue Vector. Blue Vector Network Detection and Response (NDR).
Might go actually work for Elastic. Changing your data format to be ECS compliant is a thing, but that almost like as an engineer that tightly couples you to our spec, and as we change, you're forced to change. The alternative, I know we're big on having integrations with vendors, so we have a big team that's writing them. But maybe you've seen that thing where you guys could help, submit a pull request for a integration to map your stuff to our stuff.
Right.
That's a loose couple.
Yeah, and we've done that too, is where we might write something and then work hand in hand, just they'll roll it into an integration.
Yeah, they're usually not.
Right, you roll your own beats module, right?
Yeah, so it's not too correct. We want to give options for what format you want it in. It's like, click a button, it's, ECS format. But you're right, if it's changing frequently, that might be, another answer to our question where it's like, you just, whatever the times are at the time.
There's a process at least for changing, but it's not, I'm thinking there's not Palantir, Palo Alto, for example, like they have different output formats, right? So you can output to ECS.
Yeah.
And that does make it easier, in fairness.
Yeah, we can talk more on that because I've also looked at other methods where we use like a inline, like if we use a queuing mechanism, you could read from multiple topics and then write to separate indexes, depending on whatever the requirement is needed. If you need one to conform to a certain schema versus, and then have everything go to ECS, you can.
Is there a preferred streaming mechanism? Like is Kafka seems to be like the most.
That's our go-to, but I mean. Yeah, it's pretty popular. So here I want to show you how we have worked with Elastic over the years to promote feature requirements and capture it from the government. And the best part is that Elastic has been there every step of the way, right? And they listen to the community and they work with, they listen, and then they bring in that feedback to their product roadmaps and develop them. And actually release them, right? How many times you work with a vendor and you're like, that feature's never going to be created. But I just wanted to highlight a couple that, kind of that legacy solution, what we had to do, and then the feature set that came out with Elastic. So the big thing, one of the requirements we had was data control and storage reduction, right? So we had custom Python scripts that read current indexes and created summaries of it, right? So it looked at, it read in from an index, looked at what fields were populated, created another index, and then bulk loaded it into Elasticsearch, right? That's where Elastic came along and said, wow, actually a lot of people want these summary indexes, right? They don't want to store maybe the entire document, right? Maybe there's only 10 fields that's required, or maybe they just want to compress. So that's when they came out with rollups as a feature. And that's, you use that today, compress your data or search only the required data sets that you need. In addition to that, we used legacy like cron jobs and the app curator in the past to do lifecycle management. And they came out with lifecycle management after that, but that's essentially manage your data, roll it off into a slower storage, and maintain your time series data over time. The second requirement was user and data separation. I remember I had to create multiple Apache servers, or one Apache server directed to multiple Kibana instances, because they didn't have the ability to separate the content Kibana indexes. Something we said, hey, look, how do we do this? And then down the road, they came out with Kibana spaces, so you could do it all inside the application and not have to worry about it. So if you have a SOC analyst group or insider threat group, or you name it, ISOs group, they could all see their own content, and then you could restrict based on the roles and users, based on their permissions in your IDAM solution, to access what data, right? All in one. And you don't have to have these convoluted proxies and mechanisms to interface with your IDAM solution. The next one was data access and replication. We had really complex ingest architectures in the past where we had multiple destinations if they wanted to keep their raw data out, if they wanted to compress their data into different storage, right? Now you're duplicating resources and efforts. That's when they came out with the searchable snapshots. You take the snapshot, doesn't have to be the cluster state, could just be the indexes and data that you want, and just put it out into whatever store and hydrate it when you need it, right? And then also they did cross-cluster replication, so you could search your indexes across clusters and not have to replicate your data. So self-explanatory. And then lastly, the SIM data sets. I think that's similar to kind of what you were talking about, is how do you conform your data? We've always had to be worried about what SIM technology that they're using at the time and how we could conform it and get it into that pipeline. Now with ECS, they came up with this data schema that are now conforming and using across other features in the application. So the main point is that they have their own SIM, and it works across all the other features like machine learning and observability and such.
For that ECS mapping from legacy SIMs, from their data, using like SEP data into ECS, is a serious amount of work.
Mm-hmm.
Having expertise in what the product is spitting out, what the world of data is that needs to map, is really important. I've seen a lot of customers struggle mightily trying to do that. So yeah, looking for help is usually a good idea.
So what's our current solution development snapshot look like? And this is not inclusive, but this is just some of the things that we've been kind of highlighting and taking it in shop and capturing our requirements from our customer. The first one is the control compliance. So there are a lot of directives and memorandums across federal, industry, civilian, right, DHS, right? Whether it's 853, 527, or the new OMB memorandums that are coming out for auditing, right, security auditing. We're creating content. We are leveraging the tools and the settings inside these systems, but we are also creating our content and mapping them to be able to comply for ISO reporting and accreditation compliance, right? And the idea and the approach is like, hey, you need to set up the system. Well, work with us. I already know that you have to go through these control gates. Here are the configurations. That's one check that we don't have to deal with, that we just work with our customers and give it to you while we help you install your system. And then we're also looking at, how does that play into being a control provider across some of the services in the industry as well. Whether it's a particular agency or what is, how can we conform to those standards and say, if you're doing X, Y, and Z, then you're good to go, right? The second one is security hardening. This is always the one that always hits you hard the most. You know, everybody's might stig their image differently, and that might have an implication on the application, whether it's ECE or whatever you call it, you name it. Excuse me. So we've taken a lot of time and a lot of development cycles in configuring, you know, SE Linux, FA policies, whitelisting, whether it's a daemon service policy in Docker, you name it, and looking through the code, working with Elastic, working through the code and creating these mechanisms. So not only you could be compliant, it's secure, but also the product is going to work and not be blocked from these mechanisms, right? So we also, you know, work with, you know, the FIPS integrations. That's usually a pretty difficult one too, depending on their standards. But that just comes with us. That's the idea. The approach is, how do we accelerate these? How do we move them fast? What content can we create and move these integrations faster, right? The next one up is everybody hears zero trust. Like, what's zero trust, right? There are multiple concepts. There are a lot of vendors saying, oh, you know, you just buy this product and it's going to solve it. We have a completely different approach. We're looking at obviously methodologies and practice, but we are looking at, you know, what are the things we can do on the technical side that make sense, right? Like rolling images, rolling images and observing your state of your systems that you deploy, right? And the behavior, whether it's on the system side or user side, and then taking actionable measures to either reinforce them or block them. But the cool part of it is we want to monitor that, right? We want to monitor those in Elastic, and then maybe take an action or something outside in maybe a SOAR product or something, right? But setting up the system to be able to do that, and with the configurations across, say, the cloud platforms and or other providers, is something that we're looking into and we're starting to develop, actually. The next one is scalability. Same type of model is auto-scaling architectures for external technology sets, interfacing into Elastic, right? How can we, all the components that are tied into Elastic and the ecosystem itself, how can we scale it smartly, whether it's already a feature within a product like you guys have already, but what about the ecosystem that supports it, right? So we're looking into that as well. I actually have quite a few solutions already drawn up today. The development in O&M and automation. This is something really important, especially for our PS team and our consultants, is going through looking at all our engagements and how can we develop the automation and create repeatable templates and configurations that we could bring to other customers, right? Why reinvent the wheel when you need an Ansible playbook to install BCE, right? You should have a framework and then only modify that framework for your next customer, right? So it accelerates it, but also we could continually optimize it, right? And add in new features. You're not always starting off from the ground zero. So that's kind of in a nutshell, you know, continues to optimize development, you know, repeatable, inheritable solution designs, continually development, and then continue to work with our customers and our vendor, right? Is that constant feedback. Say, hey, look, we're seeing this a lot in the community. This is what we're doing. What do you guys think about that? Or do you even have that in your roadmap, or what are you working on, right?
Yeah, almost to that point, questions about the compliance and security hardening and stuff is how, I don't say how easy it is, but like where are the pain points doing that kind of stuff with what's out of the box in Elastic, and how much custom stuff you have to build, or there are custom plugins you're doing?
It's really just a lot of like, for example, on the OS side, right? It's just really creating those policies or modules, right? To be able to whitelist the particular paths and configurations from your product, right? Looking through your code and say, all right, what is actually being spun up? What is being written to temp? Okay, this is blocking from these policies. So how do we have to recompile it, or can we just whitelist it for like FA policy? You have whitelisted a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that's something that, you know, we could work together as well and say, you know, how about we just put that in there automatically? Like, you've done a pretty good job with like subcomp profiles and Docker, right? And making sure that some of the flags are set. But where do we go and take a step further on that? Because it's time consuming, right?
Of course, if it was easy, they wouldn't pay you.
Yeah, right.
We can make it easier.
Sure. So that's the biggest setup where I wanted to show you is kind of what we've done before, why we started using it, kind of some of the things that we're looking at today to develop, and then where we go from here. And so today, ShorePoint has a multi-year investment strategy with Elastic and leveraging Elastic across our accounts. Currently, we have 11 plus consultants, and that's between directly working with Elastic on the professional service engagements and also across our accounts directly. And a lot of our proposed solutions in the future have some type of Elastic footprint into it. So the investments, it's driving, we're going to drive internal training for our employees, the content and solution and development. That is one key, right? That's a huge key. Reach back models for our consultants and employees as well, and also Elastic. And then the knowledge and solution design stores and additional resource capture, right? We're looking to expand our consultants, but we also want to have a really good training and a shop internally to be able to support it and have them grow, right? Have everybody grow.
Is there any kind of training you guys offer to customers on this stuff?
No, we don't have any formal training. This is all internal. We have talked with Elastic to support your training.
Yeah.
So
keep it on site.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff you talked about, like the leave behind, the automation piece, the operation piece, where
Mhm.
you leave behind Terraform and Ansible and whatnot, and the customer goes, "What the hell is this?"
Mhm.
Teaching them how to use it.
Exactly. Yep.
Of course, I know there's probably documentation and that kind of stuff, but just more broadly.
Check. So we're going to continue to work with Elastic to optimize our workflow and solution offerings. We're looking at and talking with seniors from Elastic on our side as well. We're going to get more involved on the pre-sales side of the house, right? We're going to, that way we get in front of the customer and understand the requirements and maybe match that against something that we've already done, right? Hey, do you guys ever think of this? We've actually done that at Army or wherever, right? Oh, okay, right? And then open up the conversation to understand, what the solutions and kind of discovery that needs to happen, and then go through the solutions development, and then continue to work with development for feature requests and pre-sales, and then back through pre-sales again. So that's all I have here. Please feel free to reach out. Here with my director of recruiting, John Rafiq. He said, "We're always looking for those consultants." You gave me a thumbs up when I asked it. When I said it, I said, "We have 11. We're always looking for more." So please reach out anytime, direct, or obviously if you're looking to hop on board development and working with an awesome team, check out our ShorePoint careers page.
Thanks so much, Robert. So for people who are tuning into the recording or who have joined virtually, do you want them to go to the careers page that you've linked here, or do you want them to reach out to John directly?
Either or, honestly.
Yeah, either or. Do you want to?
I'll pop in my LinkedIn
Okay.
page in the chat, and if that's shareable, that'd be great.
Yep, absolutely. I can add that to the description on the recording. Well, thank you very much, Robert. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this. And I will go ahead and end the broadcast.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.